Welcome, I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. Do you have your notepads and pens handy? I see some of you do. That's great, because I want you to take notes. I want you to make a commitment to yourself that you will jot down some sort of action item that you can implement in your business today. Remember, that's what this is all about, implementation to drive your business forward. If it is to be, it's up to me. You've got to do things in your business. You can't go in and be reactive, completely reactive. You want to be proactive. Don't just let the day happen to you. Start off with this video, jot down some notes, have a little homework, and then implement that. Have some things, your top 2 things that you're gonna get done today. Every single day, do something to drive your business forward. Today, we're gonna continue our discussion about marketing and sales. This is the 5th part, the 5th installment in this discussion, and we're going to focus today on analytics, web analytics. In one of the videos, I discussed the difference between traditional marketing and digital marketing, and one of those differences I talked about was the access to powerful analytics, which can really drive down your costs or make your advertising, your marketing that much more effective, because you can see what is effective and what's not so effective. And I told you I want you to take notes, but I'm going to follow an infographic on the screen to sort of demonstrate the point that I'm making today, and I just want to let you know that will be available to you for download, so you don't have to write down anything that's on that. And all you'll have to do is go, if you're watching this on YouTube, go into the description, follow the link for the free download. It'll ask you for your name and email address, and then you will get a copy of that. So when you are looking at this, as always, I want you to frame this through the context of your business. I want you to think about your business, and what I'm talking about is generally applied to all businesses. It's universal in nature. So just before we get into that infographic, we're gonna focus today on web traffic analysis. So there are lots of analytics you can follow, and there's a couple of important ones that before you maybe look at your website that are upstream from the analytics on your website. And the first one I would say is click-through rate. So this is a measurement, a metric that is a percentage of the people that were served your ad by the search engine. So for example, if you're using Google AdWords, the percentage of people who were served your ad that actually clicked on it and then converted, ending up on your website. And that's where those web traffic analytics will be so powerful. Once they're on your website, you want to know, what do they do? Is it effective? But of course, before that happens, the precursor is they maybe have an ad that they're clicking on. And then there's SEO, of course, we've talked about, where you're organically being served as a search result based on keywords that they enter. But I was referring to, if you are engaging in any kind of search engine marketing, paid search, then the click-through percentage is very important, because it really can speak to the effectiveness of the copy that you've written for your ad. So maybe you're using dynamic keywords and this kind of thing to promote your products and services. We're not getting into that today, but before we got into the web traffic analysis, I wanted you to think upstream a little bit. So click-through rate, make sure you're aware of that and what it is. Well, I've just defined what it is. But what is it for your individual ads? You may have several ads that you're running. That's commonly the case with search engine marketing. And when people are seeing your ads, are they clicking on them? If not, why? Are they being served to the right target market? Have you chosen the wrong keywords? And then that's the next one that I want you to familiarize yourself with. Maybe do a little bit more studying on this and become more effective at analyzing keyword popularity. There may be certain combinations of keywords, maybe even some negative keywords, that should be considered when you're designing your search engine marketing campaign that will increase the click-through rate. Now, of course, what happens once they click through is very important, because you don't want people clicking through unless they are qualified leads for you. That is to say, if they are your target market. But to the extent that we make the assumption that people are clicking through, or rather the people that are clicking through are your target market, then of course we want that percentage as high as possible. All right, from there, those are the couple of upstream things I think would be a important thing to get started with, your click-through percentage or ratio or rate, however you want to word that, as well as keyword popularity. Familiarize yourself with that, and then really dig in to your web traffic analysis. So I'm going to bring up the infographic and we're going to go through this, but I want you to think of your website once again as your virtual store. I don't care what it is that you do. I do care, but what I mean to say is it does not matter what your business is. You may be a contractor, you may have a shop, and you may work from home, and your primary place where you engage in business is at your customer's residence or place of business, or there might be a job site that you go from time to time to different places if you're in some sort of construction, or it may be that you have a brick and mortar location, or you may actually have an online presence only and you're engaged in e-commerce. Regardless of what that is, you do need a web presence. And when we go through your web traffic analysis and those powerful analytics that will help to guide you to improve your web presence, I want you to think of them as your virtual store. So we're going to use that analogy today. So let's pull up the infographic and we'll go through this. As you can see, I've got this pyramid in front of you here, and I want you to, again, think of this through the lens of an analogy. Let's use the example of a retail clothing store. Now, if you're a master electrician, contractor, or if you run an automotive dealership, or you're in some completely different form of service business or whatever, you may think that's not relevant to you, but you'll see why it's important to sort of frame this to try to make it simple to understand the terms that we have on there. So it says web traffic analytics, and if we look at the pyramid, it's shaped in that way because we want you to think of this as starting at the bottom. The foundation of the pyramid is the most important, and then your goal is going towards the top. You're getting more refined. It's like the upside down funnel. And you can see on the side here, it says start here and work your way up. So this point right here is very important for you. It says focus efforts at the bottom of the pyramid and work your way up as you experience diminishing results on harvesting low-hanging fruit. So in business, we always want to go after those greatest opportunities first. So the lowest hanging fruit, those things that will make the biggest impact on your business with, say, the least results. And then as you get diminishing returns and you've spent a long time on that and it's been helpful, but you're not now getting as much of return, then you can start working your way up. That is focus at the bottom first. So you're gonna learn maybe some new terminology today. And that's good. That's what this is all about. Don't think of this as being too complicated. If you're brand new to web traffic analytics and all this kind of stuff, that's why I'm doing the video, to try to make it more simple for you. And you don't have to do this yourself. If at the end of the day you learned enough about this and you're like, I still don't want to deal with this, and you can just always reach out to a company like ours. We can do your whole design and build of your website for you. We can track this stuff. We can report it to you. But even with that, you're going to want to have an understanding of what these things mean, because they're very meaningful to you as a business owner. So at the bottom, we have sessions, and I'm saying to you that I think that is the most important thing that you're going to want to start with. You want to have as many sessions as possible. And it has a little definition here. A session is the number of individual interactions with your site during one time frame. So I told you we're going to use the analogy of a retail clothing store. So if you think of, you have this clothing store, what you want, I'm saying you want as many sessions as possible. Think of sessions as visits to your store. You want a bustling store, retail environment. You can understand that the more times people visited your store, that the more likely it is that you're going to get the desired result, which is to get them at the cash register and exchange some of their hard-earned currency for some of your clothing. So sessions are visits. They're individual interactions with your website. Think of them as visits to your website. So why do we call them visits? Because I didn't want you to get confused between visitors and visits. Visits are the number of times that a person comes and visits your website. So one person could come and visit your website 100 times. That would be 100 sessions. Now there are rules for the definition, like a session. If they're visiting you at 11:59 and then it goes or p.m. and then it goes to 12:01 a.m., it would count as a different session, because the way Google at least counts your sessions would be within a particular 24-hour time period. So once it goes to the next day, a new session is logged. If there are 30 minutes of inactivity, so somebody goes onto your website, we've all done this, we've been on a website and all of a sudden, you get distracted, you leave your computer. Well, Google doesn't necessarily know unless they're watching through your webcam. I'm not so sure that's not happening, but I digress. The session is still being recorded, or not recorded, it's still counting as one session. But if there was 30 minutes of inactivity, you didn't interact with anything because you were off doing the dishes or doing something else, and then you came back, say an hour later, and started interacting with the website again, that would be another session, another visit. So again, if we think of this through the lens of a brick and mortar clothing store, then you can appreciate that. You don't want, if somebody, you're counting the number of times people visit your store. Well, if they're not doing anything and they're just standing there, then and they become inactive, then it's maybe not as relevant. So there is a time frame, I guess. That wasn't a very good explanation, but you can appreciate that there has to be a way online to say, well, this is no longer an active session because there's inactivity. So sessions are visits, a count of the number of visits, and in your brick and mortar clothing store, you want as many visits as possible. That is likely going to lead to more business. The next one up, if you've got lots of visits, people are visiting like crazy, you want lots of visitors, you want lots of visitors, you want different individuals. So you think of that again in the clothing store, it's like, well, if there was one person visiting 100 times, the likelihood of you having a great deal of business out of that is less likely than if you had 10 people or 100 people. So different individuals visiting, whether it's their first time in or their be-backs, as we used to say, if they're coming back over and over, the number of visitors is different. So you want, again, it's obvious, if you run a retail location, you would want as many different visitors as possible. You wouldn't just want a whole bunch of sessions. You wouldn't want to just have a huge count of visits. You would want lots of visitors. You would want lots of different people coming in. That would increase the chances that you're going to do more business. So the visitors definition over here, number of people who visit the site, your store, your virtual store, both new and returning. Okay, so you're working on this stuff. You're doing things that are within your power to drive more sessions, and we'll talk just a little bit about that. What can you do? Of course, you want to create interest on your website. You want to have value on your website that draws people in. You want to take on good practices, the best practices for search engine optimization. Maybe you're going to do some advertising that drive people to your website. That's going to drive up your sessions and your visitor count. And then the next one up on there that you're going to pay attention to is bounce rate. So bounce rate is defined as the percentage of visits that terminate the session prior to interaction with the site. So think of this again in your fictional clothing store. Somebody walks in, so you have a visitor walking in, it's now a session count, and they don't actually pick up any items, they don't look at anything, they don't engage with the staff, they just turn around and walk out. And if you've ever worked in a retail location, or certainly you've all been in retail locations and you've all done that. You walked into a place and you go, no, this isn't what I'm looking for. These clothes aren't my style or whatever. And you turn around and walk right back out. That is, you're bouncing. That is the equivalent in a brick and mortar location of bouncing like you would on a website. So you've done that on a website, you went in, and as soon as you go there, you may look at the homepage and see, oh no, this isn't what I thought it was, and you hit the back button or you terminate the session. So that's the bounce rate. And of course, you want your bounce rate as low as possible. We talked at the bottom of the pyramid, you want your session count as high as possible. You want your visitor count as high as possible. and you want your bounce rate as low as possible. You want people to not walk into your store, visit your website, and turn around and walk right back out without interacting. If that's happening, if you're having a very high bounce rate, of course you need to look at that and you go, why? I wonder why. Is it because I'm drawing in the wrong people? Am I advertising in a way that is misleading people and I'm not getting my target market in? Or am I failing to have anything of interest or value that catches their attention right off bat when they visit? Should I consider reorganizing my homepage, having more relevant information up top, that kind of thing, so that they don't bounce? Once you have worked hard and your bounce rate is down to acceptable levels, now just let me stop there for a second and say, you might ask me, well, how many sessions should I have? What's a good number of sessions? What's a good number of visitors? What's a good bounce rate? And I will tell you that that is going to depend from industry to industry and from business to business. One thing we always talk about is that when you talk about performance analytics, you can compare to your competition and you compare to your history. So in this case, I would advise you to start with your historical averages. So you're going to chart this over time. You're going to want to take a look at a graph. Over time, your sessions should go up. In fact, my website, my business has experienced a 50% growth year to date on almost every month. It's about that. It's some months are a little higher than others, of course, but in terms of our session count, it's growing by about 50%. So that's an example of comparing historically. Now, there aren't a lot of businesses like mine, so for me to compare to the competition, I don't have access to that data, first of all, about what my competition's number of sessions are. So I'm focused on improvement on these analytics. So when you're thinking, well, what's a good number? I'm afraid I can't tell you. You've got to look, and if you're going in the right direction, if you're improving, that's a good thing. And you know, the greater extent to which you're improving, the better off you are. So if you're growing by 100% year over year, that's better than 50%. If you're growing by 10%, that's better than not growing. And certainly if you're going in the wrong direction, if your session count or your visitors are going down, that's a bad thing. If your bounce rate is going up and your sessions are going up, you might actually be doing okay. Like maybe you had very, very strict copy and you were generating interest only from a very qualified target market, and those that visited your site were not bouncing, so you had very low bounce rate. But then you maybe strategically decided, well, I'm gonna broaden my search a little bit in terms of the copy that I use in my text-based ads, my search engine marketing. I'm going to try to draw in more people because I might be limiting the interest. So again, if we think of this as a fictional clothing store, you might say, you know, we had our advertising and our signs and everything that were drawing people in. We had a very high percentage of people engaged once they were coming in, but we were not getting as many as we'd like. So we're going to try to draw more people in. And so you might change, you know, your merchandising at the front of the store or whatever to show stuff that's maybe not as niche or whatever. And it draws more people in, but more bounce, more come in and go, So you got to balance that. These are strategies, and the key today, our objective today, is to get you to understand what these terms mean so that when you get a report and you look at it, you can understand and then you can strategize. It's all about affecting change, positive change. What strategies will you come up with once you know this information? All right, so once you're satisfied that you've done all the work you can on your, not all the work you can, but you know what I mean, you're getting diminishing returns on your bounce rate, and you can work your way up the pyramid. And now you're taking a look at page views. So in our fictional clothing store, you would think of page views as perhaps a session. Of course, a visitor comes in and it's a session count and they don't bounce, they actually interact in some way in your store. Maybe they pick up a clothing item off the rack and they look at it and they put that back, and then they go over to a different rack and they pick up another one. That might be the metaphorical or the analogous to a different page that they're viewing, a different clothing item or what have you, a different product. So you want as high a page view count as possible because that means people are really engaged. Now, if they walked right into your store, picked up the first item they saw and headed to the cash register and bought, that would be good, I agree. And you might say, well, that's a low page count because they found the right page right off the bat and they bought what they wanted. But to the extent that you have other things available for them, you have other products or services available, then maybe that's not the ideal situation. We'll talk more about the ideal in a moment when we get to funnel analysis. But if you have multiple things on your website, or you think of, I hate to change the example here, but IKEA, they take you through a path and they want you to go through everything. You might be, or Costco, a lot of these big stores, you go in and they don't want you to just grab one thing and head to the cash register. So if you're an electrical contractor, maybe you're like, yeah, well, I want people to come on and I would love for them to book an appointment and they could exit and that would be very efficient. Okay, some businesses though would love people to view different things. You want higher page counts. That's generally speaking, everyone's gonna want higher page count. That means that people are more engaged. They are surfing your website. They're checking out the various items in your store, your virtual store, and it's a good thing. So page views, the definition over here, number of pages viewed within a session. Of course, a person can exit a session and they can come back another time. They can come back into your store and then that's a new session, and so the page count counts again. It might be the same visitor, right? A repeat visitor, and it's a new session, but your page count goes up. So make sure you understand these examples. And for me, it helps to think of it more in a real world, the three-dimensional world. It's like, okay, a page view would, if the same person looked at the same pair of jeans 3 times within one session, within one visit to the store, that doesn't count as 3 different page counts. But if they terminated the session, they left the store, they came back the next day maybe with their friend and showed them the jeans, the same jeans that they were looking at yesterday, that's another page count, and that's a good thing. You want as many page counts as possible. All right, the next one up the list is session duration, and that is defined as the time spent on the site during a session. So in our fictional retail location for clothing, then you can appreciate that the longer people spend in your store, the better. It's more likely you're gonna do more business. These are all things that you want. So going down to the bottom, you want as many visits as possible, by as many visitors as possible. You want as low bounce rate, where they turn around and walk right back out, as possible. You want them viewing as many different pages as possible. You want the higher page count. And so this viewing lots of different items, and you want them staying as long as possible. This would be the definition of a very vibrant business. And when you have really low counts on everything and a high ratio or a high bounce rate, then that's a bad thing. So these are all the things you're going to go through to try to drive things up. And then once you've got that, everything, we start at the bottom, we work our way to the funnel analysis. Now, funnel analysis is a system that we can set up, you can set up for yourself, we could set it up for you, where you define exactly the customer journey that you want them to go through once they come into your store. So in our example of our fictional retail fashion outlet, perhaps what we would set up is we'd say, well, we want them to come in and we'd like them to scroll through the new items, and then we'd like them to put some of those things into their shopping cart, and we would like for them to maybe say hello to a staff member and engage in some way, and then we want them to go to the clearance items, that we're clearing out for the seasonality reasons or whatever, and maybe try some of those sale items and put those in their cart. Then we would like them to go into the dressing room and do the fitting rooms to try some of the stuff on, and we'd like them to take all the ones that they like, and we'd like them to go then to the cash register, and then we would like them to pay, and then we would like to, wish them a good day. What you can do on your website is each of those steps, all of those things that you define, you can set those as goals. You can create the customer journey. You can tell the software, and don't worry, if you don't have the software, you don't know how to do it, we can do all of this for you. You can do it yourself. We can just give you the software. We can do the reports, whatever you want, and it's very inexpensive. But you can tell the software, here's ideally what I want my customer to do. These are the steps we want them to go through. And you set what's called goals. And then your analytics in your funnel analysis will tell you, are people going through that sales funnel as you want them to? Where are they exiting that sales funnel? Where are things going off the rails, so to speak? So people, maybe they come in and they look at your new items and then they bounce. Or they come in, they look at your new items and then they say hello to a staff member. They added some things into their cart, and before they went over to the clearance items, they went straight to the fitting rooms and they tried some things on, they bought it. And what you might say is, well, you might have decided for your particular business case, we want people to always view our clearance items, and you might see that in your goals that's not occurring. So then you can come up with strategies to make sure, are we not giving them a powerful enough message? Should we suggest, should we have something on the site, in the store, on the site, whether you're following the analogy or actually literally thinking of this as a website as I'm talking. Either way, you want to consider what your strategy is to get them to visit that goal that you have for the clearance items. All right. Or another example might be they come in and they go right to the clearance items. They walk by all the new stuff. They look at it. They don't add anything to cart and they leave. Or they go to the clearance items. They add a few things to the cart and then they leave. An abandoned cart situation. All these kind of things will appear on a report, and you can see the customer behavior, and then you can strategize to change things. So that's what the funnel analysis is all about, and you should really be paying attention to this. Set this up, set some goals, and then it's all about what percentage of your goals are being accomplished. And if you realize, well, we've actually changed our goals based on seasonality, market conditions, competition strategy, whatever it is, you can change your goals at any time. You can set up new goals and you can track that. But over time, it's all about improvement, perpetual refinement to try to accomplish your goals in this case. Over here, it says tools for additional insights. Now, there's heat maps, and a heat map will basically, it shows you your website, and almost like one of those infrared, like Predator. You can see different colors based on the popularity of where people's attention is being paid. So maybe where their cursor is, and where the software predicts what their attention is, what's in the middle of the screen, that kind of thing. And then it cools off. The different colors indicate how popular something is. And so that shows you and tells you, well, this is really popular on your website. Over here is really cold. Nobody's actually visiting this. And if it's something that's really important to you that they see and they engage with, you might want to do some modifications to the website. You might want to move that. You can see, well, people are spending all their time at the top, above the fold, we call it, and they're not going down. They're not scrolling down very often. So I might want to move something further up if it's really important. And then the next thing is scroll maps, and that also, it's the name would indicate, that would give you an indication of how often people are scrolling, how much time do they spend down below the first or second fold, and if you have that on your website. So you can pay attention to that. Attention maps is another thing. So it's just another way of trying to ascertain where people's attention is being focused within the site. And A/B testing is next on the list there. And A/B tests are about, it's also known as split testing, where you're employing a tool, a strategy to see what works better. So really, you shouldn't have a strong opinion on one web layout versus another, your store. What you should be is focused on the data. And what A/B testing allows you to do, it's like if we go back to our example of the fictional clothing store, if we had two stores in two different malls, and one of them had the clearance items up front, and the other one had the clearance items in the back, and everything else was the same, that would be an A/B test. In store A, how well are we doing on moving some of those clearance items versus in store B? And you can do that with your website, where we can create two different versions. We can clone the page and just make slight changes. It could be an image that's changed, could be the location of a video that's changed, or a call to action button that's different. Any one thing we can change. We can change multiple things, but you don't want to change too much, because then you would have a hard time determining which of those variables was responsible for the success. So we change one thing at a time, And then we see, oh, we're getting better conversion. We're getting a higher percentage of our goals achieved. Our funnel analysis is showing with this A/B testing, we're getting a better result on B. So then you make B the standard. And by the way, if I wasn't clear, if I didn't say this, what happens when we A/B test and we clone the site is that certain visitors get A and certain visitors get B, as if they were two different malls. And the website, the technology, the software does that automatically. So it's not like the same person sees two different pages and chooses which one they like. It's different visitors. Session recordings, that actually allows you to record all the steps, all that happens while the visitor's there. I know it's a little creepy, but what you're doing in a session recording is you get to see, did they scroll, did they click, where did they go? And you actually can watch a recording of a visitor's journey. What did they do? And if it's completely different than your goal, then you can, react to that and you can strategize. You want to be careful because you want a data set that's big enough to indicate that you should change something. Just one off is not necessarily a causation or should not necessarily prompt you to assume something's wrong. So if you get one visitor go on in a session recording and they completely did something that was strange and not at all what you want your visitors to do, that doesn't mean you should change it yet. So you want to have enough data, enough examples that would indicate a change is necessary. And then funnel analysis, we already kind of went through, but that's a tool that you definitely want to focus on to try to get additional insights into your website. Now, speaking of website, I should say and make it really clear, it's really important for you to understand that all of these things you can do site-wide. So you can look at these analytics for your entire website, or you can do them by page. So it may be your home page that you're counting your sessions on and your visitors and your bounce rate and everything, or it could be a specific product page or a specific service page, because you have a whole bunch of different ways that people come into your website from, maybe they're from your social media, maybe from an email campaign that you ran, maybe from a search engine marketing campaign that you're running, or from just an organic Google search, third-party referral. They come directly because they've got the website from a business card or whatever. There's all sorts of different ways that people come to your site. Sometimes they're being linked into a specific page within your site, not your home page. Now, certainly you don't want all of your strategies to take people to your homepage. Like if you're doing an email campaign and you're trying to figure out the effectiveness of that email campaign, you may have a specific landing page that people who click on the email and end up on your website, they go to a specific landing page that's relevant and has content relevant to the interest that you generated within the email. That's a best practice. So you can appreciate people are ending up at different places in your site, and the journey that they go through is not going to be the same every time. So you can set up different funnel analysis based on the source of the traffic. So, and that's another thing, of course, in analytics, we can track the source, we can track the browser, their operating system, all sorts of things. We just don't want to get into too much of that today. But I just wanted you to understand that you can do this by page. So let's say you've worked hard on creating a new service page, you've got a new product, and you have a landing page for it, and there's a video that explains how great the product is, and you've got your pricing and all that kind of stuff, and your site-wide session count is going up and your visitor count is going up, your bounce rate is maybe going down, your page views are going up, but on this specific page you might be disappointed with the numbers. You did all these analytics on a specific page and found out, my session count is really low, my visitors, and we put all that work into this new product and everything. So then your strategy becomes about, we got to drive people to this page, and you have a different goal in mind. And we can't get into all the various ways that you could strategize to change that. The key I wanted you to understand is you don't just set this up site-wide and focus on it, you do it specific. So if you have a particular department, maybe you've got a new head of your marketing department, or you've engaged a company like ours for marketing, and you say, hey, we're just releasing this new product and it's really important to us, our goal, there's so much in R&D, or there's so much investment we had in sourcing this product from across the world, we're importing it, we're unique right now, we want to go all in, we want all of our web traffic to visit this page. So we can set up a strategy to make that happen. We could even make it the home page, and there's all sorts of things that we can do. The key for understanding today, the objective today, was for you to familiarize yourself with these terms and understand that you then strategize. When you're looking at your web traffic analytics, make sure you collaborate with the various stakeholders. Get multiple heads in a room together, or however you're going to communicate. Make sure that other people are considering things, because then you have to come up with some hypotheses. It's like, just because the data says one thing, it's not necessarily super clear as to why it's ending up that way. Sometimes you're puzzled. Sometimes you get a little confused. It's like, why are our session counts so low, but we have so many visitors? Or why is our bounce rate so high? I don't get it. Our bounce rate is going in the wrong direction. And different people, when you collaborate, you get the cumulative intelligence, you get the cumulative creativity and ideas. And sometimes ideas come from the most unlikely sources. So get different people together to evaluate this stuff. And once again, if all of this stuff is intimidating, don't write it off. We can do this for you. You can't afford for your competition to be doing this on a regular basis, and you're not. They're going to steal your lunch. They're going to steal your market share and your customers. All right, well, we've been at this long enough today, I guess. I think that's where I want to leave it, and I hope you got something out of it. I hope you've jotted down some sort of action item that you're going to implement in your business today. Maybe your only action item is you're going to reach out to Bickert Management. You're going to have us get you a whole new website and give you this report, all these reports, and set up funnel analysis and goals for you. I'm not sure if you want to do that or not. If you want to do this and you just need a little assistance, reach out to our team and maybe we'll just help you get set up and help you do it yourself. That's perfectly fine. We do that as well. And whatever you got out of this video, I hope you'll take some time to leave a comment, and then you can push back. You can ask for some clarification and say, well, I really didn't understand this. Maybe we need to go into more. And when you leave a comment like that, someone else in the community, some other manager, aspiring manager, somebody in business reads it and they learn. And we need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.